She was the poster girl of corporate India, the woman who not just broke, but shattered glass ceilings. Chanda Kochhar was the story young girls read about and thought that I too can reach the top. Meanwhile, Venugopal Dhoot was the success story of India Inc., the man whose company gave middle-class Indians their televisions, refrigerators, ACs long before the Korean giants dominated the market. Today, Chanda Kochhar, former MD and CEO of ICICI Bank, her husband Deepak Kochhar and Venugopal Dhoot, boss of Videocon Industries, are all in CBI custody. A CBI special court has sent them to custody for another 3 days. But what exactly did they do? And why have they been arrested now? That is what we will break down on this show today. Now, the Kochhars and Venugopal Dhoot have been friends since the mid-90s. But it is in 2009, after Chanda Kochhar becomes MD and CEO of ICICI Bank, when she can really help out her friend. As per an over 200-page Enforcement Directorate chart sheet, it was during 2009 to 2011 that ICICI Bank under Kochhar sanctioned 6 loans worth 1,875 crore rupees to the Videocon Group. But it was one particular loan of 300 crore rupees that got Kochhar into trouble. She was the chairperson of the committee that cleared it. This loan hits the account of a Videocon Group company on 7th of September 2009, and a day later, in 24 hours, 64 crore rupees is transferred from that account to Chanda Kochhar's husband, Deepak Kochhar's company, New Power. So this is the crux of the allegation, that this loan is cleared by Chanda Kochhar, and in lieu of this, 64 crore rupees is invested by that same company getting the loan in Deepak Kochhar, her husband's firm. Now, by 2012, it's clear that Venugopal Dhoot has no intention of paying back these loans to ICICI Bank. An NPA, or non-performing asset, of 1,730 crore rupees is declared. This means the bank knows they won't get the money back. So how did they get caught? Because in the interim, life is good for Chanda Kochhar. She's on the list of 100 most influential women 7 times consecutively. In 2011, she's awarded the Padma Bhushan. But it is in 2016 that a whistleblower, Arvind Gupta, an investor, blows the lid. Today, after years of investigation, arrests have been made. Will they lead to a conviction? Well, there's no guarantee. But this case, as per the investigative agencies, has highlighted corruption in high places. Today on the show, I'm going to first speak with Arvind Gupta, the man whose investigation forms the basis for the case today. He's the whistleblower in the case, exclusively speaking with us on Mirror Now. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start at the beginning. How did you stumble upon all of this evidence, and how did you come to expose this corruption?
Videocon, Navarda Electronics, was the first company in the year 1991 after economic reforms, which went public. And that was the issue which was stalled by MRTPC Commission. And he got it cleared because of his connections very well in high places. And thereafter, they are all premeditated, management of the corporates, who manage right people at right places to get the benefit that they desire for their projects. Now, earlier it was crony capitalism. Now I think I would say it is now bankers hand in glove with corporate honchos and the bankers in the private sector. Now, because they formed a 50-50 joint venture with Chanda's husband, so Videocon family and Chanda Kochhar's family.
No, Mr. Gupta, let's start at the beginning. How did you, as an investor in Videocon, come across all this information? And what was your inspiration, or what was your reason for taking this all public? How did you get involved in this story, sir?
Well, as a stakeholder, you keep watching the movements of the information that flows to the public life. And they are the public companies, be it ICICI was a stakeholder and the Videocon I was a stakeholder. Now, when you say sudden rise of the group, obviously you try to investigate what is there, which is pumping them up. In fact, in the market, they get all sorts of loans and privileges, whether it be a new project or a greenfield project, and they keep on obviously getting the better treatment, unlike others. Now, when this matter of Chanda Kochhar and Videocon promoters, they came in light, so obviously you come to know as to there is something suspicious. You get one link, you get one clue, and then you start investigating and studying. So now everything is filed in ROC. And you start trailing it, backward, forward linkages of the fund flow, you will come to know as to what is happening. So anything that is suspicious, you obviously investigate that further. Incidentally, there was a time which was a little bad in 2008-9, a global meltdown. So the defaults were happening. However, in this case, possibly the default was averted by the bankers giving them loan. That's what they call evergreening of the funding. It's not only one group. If you see the ICICI Bank's funding in the corporate sector, more than a dozen known corporate sectors, they were funded. And most of them became NPAs. So did anyone investigated that? It's just that, it has just come into light. But there are...
Yes. So, no, I was just underlining the point you've made. If an ordinary borrower defaults on a loan, they will be hounded. Their credit history will be ruined. They will be left with nowhere to go with recovery agents on their back. For large corporates, for a long time, their loans just went on in perpetuity. Yes. Loan to pay back loan to pay back loan, with no idea of how it will come back. No, how did you chance upon, you said you used public documents, etc. How did you chance upon this linkage of a personal friendship between the Kochhars and Venugopal Dhoot? Because that's the link, isn't it?
Maybe it's a chance recovery, a discovery of the item, which gives you more credence that, yes, this has to be looked into. What I'm saying is just not one this. There are tens of other corporates wherein the funds have gone bad. And the NPAs, as you would recall, I think the Honorable Finance Minister said about 10 years back, over 10 lakh crore of the funds have become NPA, non-recoverable. Whose money is that? Taxpayers' money. If the vigilant taxpayers or the stakeholders don't look into it, I mean, where do we get the corporates to perform? After all, what you do, I mean, you do nothing but you raise the alarm, you write to the authorities and expect them to act. Now, in this case is more than 6-7 years, and it's just not one case. That action has taken place, maybe slowly, but I am sure the others also would follow. So when this case come in, then the ICICI management said they have a very transparent system of... Yes. So they say they have a very transparent, well-defined system of funding, extending credit to all the corporates. There was a time when the entire bank management were defending the management, that nothing is unfair. However, later on, when all this discovery came in public, then they found that, yes, something is wrong. It is after that the media reported that, yes, there is something which is not fair, that all these things has come in. Otherwise, nobody reported.
No, it started off with your letter you wrote to the Prime Minister. You put it on your blog. The media then picked it up.
Yes.
And perhaps if you had not done that, Mr. Gupta, this case would have gone unnoticed, because like you mentioned, that was a time when many companies were defaulting for various reasons. And at the end of the day, it's the discretion of the bank who they want to give a loan to and don't want to give a loan to.
Correct. But these banks are private banks, but run by the public money. Why shouldn't you be transparent and accountable? You talk of corporate governance and the best bank in the country. I mean, this is only a case of a domestic lending. What about the overseas lending, global lending? The banks extended funds to not only the Indians, but also the foreign offshore banking. And most of that time, it has gone bankrupt. The money is unrecoverable. I mean, somebody has to be accountable to stakeholders.
But you know,
And
the charge is not that the money was unrecoverable. The charge is that a loan was extended by the bank under the leadership of Chanda Kochhar in lieu of a kickback to her husband's company of 64 crore rupees. That's the crux of the entire thing. Mr. Gupta, please stay on with us. Please stay on with us. I want to add our panel as well.
Yeah.
You know, who's breaking this down, and I want your inputs on this because you've been tracking the story so closely. Sandeep Ghosh, author and political commentator with me on the show today. Ajay Bagga, market expert, joining us. I'm speaking with Shantanu Sen, former joint director of the CBI. Bhavtosh Singh, my colleague from Times Network, who's been tracking the story since day one, also with us on the show. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Shantanu Sen, I want to ask what a lot of people have been asking, and in fact, it's a question which was put up in court as well. Why is the CBI choosing to act now? This charge sheet has come out in 2019. It's 2022. The Kochhars are saying that their son is getting married in 2 weeks, and that's why the CBI has acted now. Why the delay, sir? Has there been new information? That's why they may have delayed?
That is a question which the CBI can answer. I do not know the answer. Why did they delay? There was a clear case of fraud here. But most important, what intrigues me in this case is that here is an outstanding woman, recipient of awards after awards, right from Padma Bhushan to Times Now recognition, Forbes list, and thought very highly of by the corporate bank. Here she was doing corruption openly from 2009. She was in cahoots with her husband and Venugopal Dhoot. And what is the RBI doing? I'm afraid RBI has much to answer here. And it is unfortunate that the CBI has not latched on to the failure of the RBI to detect this. I recall my days when I was investigating the Harshad Mehta scam, where the RBI was definitely involved in the rollover of funds repeatedly by the State Bank of India, which allowed Harshad Mehta to get away with the scam for a long, long time. But the CBI exposed the RBI. CBI exposed the RBI governor. The governor did not get an extension. But here in this case, when such a loan has been given, and there has been a clear case of cahoots, defraud, yet the CBI is silent on the role of the RBI in not detecting this in their various inspections. What are these inspections for? What are they doing? So we should not settle here only for the fact that the 3 of them are being investigated. We should ask the RBI, CBI, that you have taken plenty of time to find out the initial accused. But what about the others who have been in cahoots with them?
Does it go deeper?
And Kochhar could not get away with this sort of fraud.
Right.
Could not get away with this fraud without the RBI inspection failing time and again in detecting the fraud.
No, that's a valid question.
That is the question which is relevant.
That's a very valid question. Where are the checks and balances? What is the board of ICICI doing? Why were they backing Chanda Kochhar for the longest time? You know, Ajay Bagga, today in court, the defense for the Kochhars say what about the timing? Why the delay? In the past, the Kochhars' defense has been, why are you relating the 2 transactions? Deepak Kochhar has been on record saying that just because my wife is CEO of ICICI Bank, should I sit at home? Should I not work? Her bank deals with every major corporate. Should I not work? Do you think that they have a chance to escape this, or are they now truly caught in the net?
Tamanna, again, I have no more deeper information right now, apart from what we are gleaning from the media. But there are media reports that Mr. Dhoot might turn an approver, and that might have been the catalyst for these arrests, because the counsel for the defendants brought up that the promoter has not been arrested so far. So today, I think they arrested him so that that check mark has happened. And at the charge sheet time now, when they present it to the court, they will present him as an approver. So that might be one theory why it has happened now. But if we look back, you know what Mr. Arvind Gupta, the whistleblower, brought out, Tamanna, 10 lakh crores of yours, mine, every taxpayer's money has been written off by casual banking over the last 10 years. 10 lakh crores. I mean, it's not a joke. Your fiscal deficit is about 7 to 8 lakh crores, and we make such a song and dance about it. That's the amount these corporates have eaten out. If you and I are a credit card holder and we don't pay on time, we start getting abusive calls. People will come to our house. You know, small people's houses are taken. Farmers are committing suicide. And then these corporates get away with this. You must highlight this. There were 13 companies in Videocon. There were 54 banks which lent to the main company. There were 34 which lent to the second company. What were all those banks doing? The total is 90,000 crores, Tamanna, without counting the interest. And the liquidation value of a very high-paid liquidator who has been appointed is coming to 2,500 crores. How did you lend 90,000 crores to a company whose liquidation value is 2,500? When you go and give credit to a corporate, what are you looking for? You're looking for capacity, you're looking for cash flow, you're looking for collateral, and you're looking for character. Character is your smell test, which comes in the end, what the CBI director Saab has said very well. When the RBI auditors would come to us, they would start with the biggest loans. Then on random, they'll pick up other loans and go through it. They will check for evergreening. There are very strong statutes in place where you can't evergreen a loan. It will get caught. At least I work for foreign banks. We never had cases. There was one foreign bank where the entire team had to be sacked because they were lending loans like this. So corporates will always try this. One more very hilarious thing, Tamanna, where these kind of corporates give private guarantees, personal guarantees. There was 57,000 crores of personal guarantee, which is not worth 1 rupee. The promoter has come on record and said, I have 8,000 crores of real estate. Where is that real estate if your liquidator is saying it's worth 2,600 today? Where are those oil and gas?
I know you're talking about, and I appreciate the point, Ajay Bagga. You're absolutely right. This is a bigger story. There is a bigger question. What were these bankers thinking when they gave these loans? But, you know, here we have to differentiate between being bad at your job and criminal intent and criminal conspiracy. They're two different things. Is there criminal intent in giving loan to people, to companies that can't pay back? Or is it that you were just bad at your job? Putting it very simply, and that's where the story lies. Bhavtosh, I want to bring you in because, you know, these rumors about one is turning approver, the other is turning approver. The fact is that these two families are friends from the mid-90s. The Kochhars are living in a house worth 5.5 crores, which they bought from Venugopal Dhoot's companies for 11 crores. They lived there for decades for free.
11 lakhs. 11 lakhs,
correct. 5.5 crores is the value of the property. They bought it for 11 lakhs. Yes, Bhavtosh?
5 lakhs.
Yes, Tamanna, in fact, this has been mentioned in detail in the prosecution complaint that was filed by the Enforcement Directorate. And when the prosecution complaint was filed in November 2020, the ED has specifically mentioned about the relationship between Kochhars and Venugopal Dhoot. And they have said that when Chanda Kochhar became the managing director and CEO of ICICI Bank, and when she was giving this loan, the first tranche of 300 crore rupees, she should have told the steering committee about her relationship with Venugopal Dhoot. She, in fact, managed to hide this fact, and in a way, EDA has questioned the entire steering committee and the board of directors of ICICI Bank. The question is, will CBI go ahead and question those who were part of the steering committee and board of directors? Remember, some of the biggest bankers in the country were in fact at that point of time associated with ICICI Bank, and ED in fact in the prosecution complaint has mentioned this. that everyone in ICICI Bank knew the fact that the Chanda Kochhar was in fact someone who had a very close relationship with Venugopal Dhoot. And this house that we are mentioning here was eventually purchased for just 11 lakh rupees by a trust which was controlled by Chanda Kochhar. Importantly, there is a very important mention in the ED's charge sheet. They have said that while the loan that was given by ICICI Bank to Videocon was for 12% per annum, the loan that Supreme Energy, the company that was promoted by Venugopal Dhoot, the 64 crore rupee loan was an unsecured loan. Not a single penny was charged by Venugopal Dhoot, and it was only in 2019 when the CBI had filed an FIR that an attempt was made by Venugopal Dhoot to get back that money. We are looking at this kind of corruption that happened for a period of nearly 10 years, and no one ever noticed this till the FIR was filed by the CBI in the first place.
No one noticed it. Let's give credit where it's due. Till Mr. Arvind Gupta painstakingly pieced together all of this evidence from public records, wrote a blog about it, wrote letters about it. It got picked up by the media. That's why, Mr. Gupta, full kudos to you today. I just want to, I'm coming back to you. I just want to get in a word from Sandeep Ghosh. You know, if you go through that chart sheet, and of course, yes, Mr. Gupta, you want to make a point?
Yes, I wanted to share two important issues in the whole this matter. A, if you go through the FIR filed by the CBI in the first one, they virtually named who's and who's of the Indian bank on the ICICI board. All the distinguished independent directors, including Mr. K.V. Kamath, including K.V. Kamath, N.S. Kannan, and they said that the role of these senior officials of the sanctioning committees may also be investigated. That's the content in the CBI's report. Number one. Number two, incidentally, obviously it's a high-profile case and therefore you all are concerned. And during those times, if I recall correctly, there was a news report appearing in the media that the then Honorable Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, I beg your pardon if I am wrong, correct me, he made a statement that Indian investigative agencies should desist from investigative adventurism. Now, if a sitting cabinet minister is making his observation in such a manner, tell me who in the regulatory department or agencies would dare to move ahead? It has taken years only because maybe now it is a realization in the government that if we talk about the zero tolerance in the corporate governance, zero tolerance about the corruption, and if we really need to have public accountability and transparency and good governance, I mean, one should go ruthlessly without any fear of favor. This obviously will be a very, very encouraging input for all the investigative agencies. I said,
right, but is it without fear of favor? I just wanted to add. No, I just wanted to add a bit of detail to what Bhavtosh was saying about these companies, these holding companies, which were used to mask this 64 crore rupee kickback or proceeds of crime, as the Enforcement Directorate describes it. Because I went through some of those details. On the board of those companies, one of the directors is a gardener hired by Videocon Industries. He says, I get 10,000 rupees, I'm the Mali. I don't know anything about it. One person on the board of directors of the company is the office boy who serves tea and snacks and doubles up as the driver. He is a director of SCPL. Sandeep Ghosh, can you imagine the audacity of, pulling wool over people's eyes because they thought they'd get away with it? Who is checking? How do we know others have not gotten away with it? Yeah, you're on mute. Sandeep, you're on mute.
If you allow me.
There you are. Yes.
That this bad.
No. Let me just come to Sandeep Ghosh for a second. I think he was on mute. Sandeep, please go ahead. No, just 1 minute, sir. Let Sandeep go ahead. Yes.
See, Tamanna, I keep citing this instance of a very celebrated Indian professional in the US who was caught for insider trading and with a partner of his who was from a South Asian country. When this gentleman was asked that how did you do this? In the US, there is zero tolerance about these things. He said, in our kind of country, it always happens, and people who are powerful, who are connected, they always get away. So I assume that even we can get away. But the difference being there, they were prosecuted, they have served their sentence, and now they are free after serving the sentence. It happens so fast. In India, they're very right, or in our sort of countries, in the Asian countries, people do this sort of a thing. They get away. They continue to live respectably till the time they're arrested, and finally they'll get acquitted after all lawyers. They can appoint any the most expensive lawyers, and they finally get away, and that gives them that audacity, as you are saying. So in this particular case, there are certain things which are not surprising. It's not surprising that an industrialist could have indulged in this sort of a thing. Industrialists have done it as a part of their business model. We have got so many such instances. It is also not surprising that what you're talking about, someone who has been celebrated in this manner, because our media is always also a bit naive. You see so many people who get caught later on. They have been earlier lionized and celebrated by the media, and whether they do it naively or they do it knowingly, that's a different issue. Here, the critical matter is it is happening in the private sector bank, and not any ordinary private sector bank, a bank which is really considered to be, ICICI Bank shareholders also have, apart from the public, they have got a lot of international funding, both banks and financial institutions over there. So it's not an ordinary bank. And in any such organization, a corporate governance, before you promote somebody as a CEO, internal organization will go through a lot of due diligence. Now, how does this person get promoted there? Forget the board. Even before that, people who nominated her, they also have an accountability. And these sort of things could not happen by chance. This was not the only case. There is another case right now in the news, without naming them, with a media company where it's been taken over. But the loan against which it was taken over was originally sanctioned by ICICI Bank. And again, part of the thing, and then it was bought, sold off to somebody else who bailed them out, and finally.
So I want to understand, Sandeep, broadly speaking. I want to understand, and yes, I saw that sort of jibe at the media. But to be honest and to be fair, Chanda Kochhar was a celebrated, inspirational figure.
So there are so many.
She made it to the most influential people's list on Time magazine. She was 7 times on top 50 most influential women in Forbes. She got a Padma Bhushan. Are you saying media should not cover someone who got a Padma Bhushan?
You must give credit to the PR.
And okay, why not just the media? What about the completely top layer of corporate India who feted her?
That's what I'm saying. They feted her. That's what happens. Even today, is she a persona non grata in corporate India? She isn't. I'm sure you live in Bombay. She's not leading an isolated life. That's the funny part of our society. We endorse these things, and even if you're caught, there's no society doesn't sort of ostracize you or anything, and especially you're connected. And I think that is where, while we can blame people taking the public for a ride, public should also question, why are we so blind? And when people are successful or it doesn't hurt us, we don't ask these questions. And I'm going back before the board, when somebody has been nominated, Chanda Kochhar was in contest with several big names, including Madhavi Puri, who's today the SEBI chief. They were all contemporaries. So the whole host of them, among them, she was handpicked to become the CEO. Didn't the organization apply any kind of?
But as per this charge sheet, as per the charge sheet, the alleged crimes were committed after she became CEO. So one would argue, how does anyone know in advance if someone's going to commit a crime or not?
In 1990, they were related with this.
They were friends. But that's the thing. And I want to come to that angle. I know, Mr. Gupta, you want to come in, and let me ask you this. Now, in a court of law, we're sitting over here, we're talking about it. This all has to be proven with criminal intent in a court of law. Ajay Bagga just said that this company has taken 90,000 crores of loans. That means other banks have also given loans. They have not paid them back as well. Was there quid pro quo there? How do you prove that these loans were given only because of quid pro quo? Was the Videocon Industries Group not getting loans from anywhere else? They were.
Well,
have they not defaulted loans elsewhere? They have. You have to prove it in a court of law. Are you today certain that they will eventually be convicted for the crimes you believe they've committed? This is just step one in the legal process.
At least this is 100% foolproof case. The entries coming in, going out of the banks and books of the accounts are so clear. You don't require to investigate beyond. It's also well established. And I tell you, this is just one case. Tip of the iceberg, I would say, in the ICICI banking. There are half a dozen more known groups who have been funded and they have become NPAs, and many of them are not even operating now in the country. So the issue is, at least in this case, you know very well, if anyone becomes the approver, I'm sure others also would get exposed. I mean, and after all, the expertise available in the investigative agencies, they are par excellence. If they wish it, they will pinpoint up to the last dollar in the account of any beneficiary, both India and overseas. ICICI Bank is a global bank. You are only.
But what has been their conviction rate for financial crime?
What about the global operations?
1 minute, sir. Then we have to look at, honestly, we have to look at what has been the conviction rate in financial crime. Let me bring in Shantanu Sen for this. The conviction rate in terms of financial crimes, especially banking crimes, Mr. Sen, you will agree, has been fairly dismal, because at the end of the day, you have to prove this intent, that these two transactions were unrelated, were not unrelated as the defendants are claiming.
What we are proving here is not necessarily what court will accept as proof. Remember this. The best cases go scot-free in court because of the brilliant, so-called brilliant lawyers they engage and show. We have the Harshad Mehta case, for example. Was Mahadevan convicted? Was Venkataramani convicted, even tried? They were responsible. The question before us is, here was a woman who joined the bank in 1984, goes up to the rank of CMD, and in the process is vaulted up, awarded. Yet she was committing acts of corruption right through. If you go back to her record, one doesn't become corrupt overnight. My experience shows that corruption starts very early. Just suddenly once she became CMD, she became corrupt. That's ridiculous. She has been corrupt, only she escaped the detection of all. And why did she escape detection? I remember the great marriage of her daughter, who wasn't there. She was behaving as the queen of the area, and every corporate chief, including the State Bank of India, was marching up to salute the great arrangement she had made for the marriage of her daughter. Where did this money come from? Yet she continued, and there was no detection. I go back to the fact that RBI inspections failed. Why did they fail? Not because they were blind. There were certainly other reasons. That is why they failed. RBI gets away with full failure of inspections. Nobody catches them. That is why these NPAs are happening. If RBI was alert and has been watchful over these loans by the private banks and the scheduled banks, half of these incidents would not happen. They get away, they are never punished. They are the masters. It's time we call them up and question them. How these NPAs are happening? What are you doing with your inspection schedule? Where are they? Where is your hard work? You go and get feted during inspections, you have parties. That is very unfortunate. And let us call this spade a spade here, that this crime would not have occurred if the RBI had been alert and doing its duty as the watchdog of the scheduled banks.
You know, Sandeep Ghosh, I want to understand this bank corporate sort of cozy club. while we're sitting with this NPA figure, 10 lakh crore rupees, and Mr. Bagga was talking about it, it can't have all happened out of the blue. Nobody is even looking into it right now. These are being written off as bad debts.
Tamanna, what you're calling, as I said, there are certain surprising part and certain not so surprising part. We always knew in public sector banks, the so-called phone banking and other things worked. People used political clout and got it there, and the public sector bank CEOs, which were essentially political appointees, they never had the guts to say no. That was part of the deal, and they did that, and covering maybe their tracks, and that's how you had. But that does not happen in bona fide private sector organizations. One cannot today. So ICICI Bank, as you said, was a global success for India. People talked about it, and someone like Mr. Vagul set it up. Mr. Vagul is of unimpeachable integrity. And from there, and he is the one who groomed a lot of these youngsters who are occupying very, very senior positions in different banks or different financial institutions. Now, how could this happen here? And we know, I don't want to get into corporate gossip. She pipped a lot of other people to the post to become the MD. CMD, she was a bit of a surprise. There were other people also in the race. Now, after that, so therefore it shows that the corporate nexus, as you say, sab mile hue hai, that today penetrate.
No, I didn't say sab mile hue hai.
No, you didn't say, but as I said, we all say that, it's now that nexus is extending wherever you have public money involved and there is no accountability, and therefore they think that, okay, they can take them for a ride even in that sort of. So what's the difference between a ICICI Bank and any other? So when you nationalized banks earlier, that was the plea that, people were taking public for a ride. You did. Now we went to full circle back saying that public sector banks are not run properly. There'll be greater accountability in private sector banks.
I don't know about this because, corruption can exist anywhere. Corruption can exist anywhere. Public sector or private sector.
No, private sector, the governance part, that's where your company law, everything.
All right. Now, I want to come to Ajay Bagga. I want to come to Ajay Bagga for a point that, was made earlier, and this was something Mr. Gupta was saying, that they had a free run. Now there's a crackdown. There should be a crackdown without fear or favor. Is what we're seeing a crackdown, or is it about which corporates can get away with what at which time? We all know that all of this is, linked with how powerful people are at any given time. Do you believe the system has truly changed?
Well, we have cleared out the NPA mess thanks to taxpayers like you and me. We have paid for it. 10 lakh crores is the bill that we have footed. We pay very high taxes. And if you add the GST, we are, somebody at a 30% tax is paying probably 50 to 54% of a salaried person pays as total taxes of what you consume. So after that, you get to save anything. So the system, at least the NPAs have been cleaned up. Tamanna, when we were reading up in the 80s for our MBAs, there were three development finance institutions, IFCI, IDBI, and ICICI. ICICI was the shining example. Mr. Kamath, Mr. Vagul really created a great institution. IFCI, we have seen the kind of NPAs. IDBI went to 54% NPA, and LIC had to buy it out. Again, taxpayer money came in, and now hopefully it will be privatized. Some money will come back to the coffers for all the efforts. But the two cases of the private sector banks that came up and shook the banking fraternity, Yes Bank and ICICI Bank, that really showed your point that it's not public sector banks only, but private sector banks also could face this. But we were hoping that there would be stronger controls. If Mr. Gupta can do the forensics, why cannot an army of forensic accountants be hired? You can follow the money.
Absolutely.
How much money will be converted, Tamanna, into cash? Most of it will be entries. and entries can be traced out. The countries are now cooperating with each other. My dividend from my foreign bank ESOPs, that, the withdrawal tax, the tax held comes to the income tax, and I get a scrutiny that how did you have an account in Jersey? When I write back, this was my ESOP, and I lost money on it because all my bonus used to come as ESOPs, and I've declared it for the last 20 years, then no answer. But every year I get a notice for $15, $20 kind of tax deducted at source. But the Panama Papers don't get investigated. In fact, there was a hilarious case where a full list of Indians holding private bank accounts was sent, and they had made a password protected list which was sent on a CD, and nobody ever got back from India. This is a number of years back. I will not say the exact years because you will know who was the FM then, but this was told to me by one of the regulators when I was in Europe, that this is your country. So that is the reality. Has the system changed? I think, yes, it's much stronger. Can we blame RBI? I think it's very tough because, the scale is huge. What you can do is what the US IRS does. They don't catch everybody, but whoever they catch, they make such an example. You look at the FTX case, now those guys will spend 80, 90 years in jail. That is the kind of stuff that they do, or they do 20 years for racketeering.
Yeah, we're at stage one. We're at stage one. What we have right now is a charge sheet from 2019. It has to go through the paces before we're close to a conviction. And of course, as per our law, these people are innocent until proven guilty. We'll have to see where this case goes. But we have to also hope that we are past the stage where bankers use the bank they run as employees, like their personal ATMs, to grant favors to friends and family. That's not free money. That's our money. And we have to pay the price for it. Thank you to all of you for joining us and helping us break down this very important case. I'm going to take a short break at this point, but when